Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. My camera's not turning. It's not.
It's a pretty good talent going in, I'm sure.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mate. Righty. Please be upstanding, everyone, and I'd like to welcome Alistair Pike from the Church Street Bible Chapel to come forward and lead us in prayer. Thanks, Alistair.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day and for this business that draws us here, because you've given us duties, responsibilities and privileges of serving this community. So we seek your blessing and ask for your help and on this time and on those who will implement things that are decided here. And Lord, we close with a little prayer that says, from about 500 years ago, God be in my head and in my thinking. God be in my eyes and in my looking. God be in my mouth and in my speaking. God be in my heart and in my understanding. Amen.
You get fined for that.
Please stay upstanding, and I'll ask Councillor Parker to lead us in our waiata.
E re re ra e aku wai Māori e maringi atua ki a koutou e. E re ra e aku wai Māori e maringi atua ki a koutou e. Rangi tata ki rona puri ura ki rau te ta o wata te ki wa ore. E re a e aku wai ni e.
Kia ora, brilliant. Please be seated. Kia ora koutou, nā mai haere mai. Welcome to our council meeting, and just got a few items today, and we've also got a council meeting next Tuesday as well to sign off the budget. So I'll start now with apologies. We've got Councillor Scott who's on leave. Any further apologies? If not, I'll move that apology. Councillor Jackson, you happy to second that? Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. We've got no public forum today. Items of urgent business. Items of minor nature. Councillor Puddington.
Thanks, Nige. Yeah, just a couple of things. A query on City Town and how we're spending the money on the quick wins. And the second point, a meeting of 4th of April, we were going to have a workshop before next week's meeting on cost of consultants and other things. Doesn't seem to have appeared. And again, how do we save money if we don't know where we're spending it?
Yep, brilliant. Thanks, Councillor Puddington. Everyone okay with that? We'll discuss those in minor nature. Any further minor nature items? Oh, yes. Yep, no, that's a good idea. And we'll just do a update in regard to the sale of Meadows Road and where we're at with that, if you're okay with that. Thank you. So move now to declaration of conflicts of interest. Is there any? No? Well, okay. Thank you. Move now to minutes of the council meeting held on the 9th of May at 23, and that's on page 6. Sorry, I just had one. Thought I had a query. Oh no, just a question. There was one action follow-up, and do we have an answer whether, in regard to the Anzac Street toilets, whether the current toilets are being decommissioned or whether they are, we now have 2 sets of toilets at Anzac Square? Has anyone got that answer? Yeah, thanks, Nicole. Just a shout out if you like, and I can.
We're just in the process of connecting the new toilets, and we can't keep those at all.
Okay, that's cool. So we're at in the process of connecting the new toilets, and we're going to keep both going. That's fantastic. Thank you. And serve sort of different purposes, obviously. Yes, councillor Pye.
Oh, I just had a question on the minutes. In one of the resolutions, we approved some delegated authority to a small group of councillors to do amend the letter of expectations to TDHL, but we don't seem to have done that.
We can, through you, Your Worship, we can talk to that at the quarterly update of TDHL. So that is on foot, but we'll talk to that at that point, Count, if you like.
Thank you. And look, and just one follow-up from me, because these minutes go back, and one of the action points at the time was to write to the police commissioner, not police commissioner, sorry, the police minister, and actions effectively changed just because of what's happened, and the police commissioner is actually coming to town in July, I think, and we're also actively seeking to have other conversations with both sides of the house in regard to policing, customs, and also aviation security. So there's sort of wider conversations to have, so that action got sort of put to bed. But otherwise, I'm happy to move those minutes. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Pye, thank you. We'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried, thank you. Move now to 8.1 on page 18. I'm happy to move the 8.1, which is schedule of functions attended by the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and councillors, and thank you again to those who attended some activity. Thank you specifically to Councillor Shannon and also Councillor Scott for the Sports Awards speech, so appreciate that. I'm happy to move that from the Chair. Councillor Burt, thank you. I'll put the motion out. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. 8.2 is schedule of functions attended by the Chief Executive. Can I have a move for that? Councillor Parker, thank you. Seconder. Yep, Councillor Booth, thank you. Appreciate that. Put the motion to the floor. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Okay, reports now. 9.1, fixing of the common seal. I'm happy to move that. Thank you. Councillor Burt as a seconder. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Move now to 9.2, which is the quarterly report from Venture Timaru, and we've got Nigel Davenport is on Zoom, and welcome Tony Howie, the chair, to join us. Thank you, Tony. And can you hear us okay, Nige?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're perfect, loud and clear. We'll pass to you, Nigel and Tony.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry I can't be there in person today, everyone. We submit our quarterly report, bearing in mind it is for the quarter to the end of March, so 31st of March. Admittedly, we're talking about it near the end of June, but such is the schedule of these. The key things, I suppose, just to point out, it's been great working with Your Worship over the last 6 months or so around starting to generate the story around the capability of our local region, wider than just Timaru District, but the sub-region of South Canterbury, the contribution to NZ Inc. The first cab off that rank, as per our paper, was in relation to the food and fibre exports, where you can see we punch well above our weight. The one thing I would point out there is that, you know, they're nearly $4 billion now from South Canterbury, and they've increased 82% in those last 5 years or so, which clearly comes with some challenges, obviously, around both servicing that from a infrastructure perspective, energy, etc., but also from a workforce perspective. But better that way than the other way, if I can put it that way. And this is really just the first start from us working closely with council, just to ensure that a current government and the opposition leading into the election this year are well aware of the contribution that this part of the country provides to New Zealand Inc. And when there's a lot to be paid for, and rightly so with some of the remediation work up through the Hawke's Bay area, that the engine that pays for it needs to be supported equally as well. So workforce attraction ongoing. Again, that quarter was around the time where we were voted the #1 non-metropolitan place for people to be attracted to work. And they got the double whammy of the two Nigels on 7 Sharp and Project for them. But great opportunity for us to put forward what a great place this is, and you'll see some of the commentary there. The ECA RETA report, this is the Regional Energy Transition Accelerator. We're partnering with ECA, second region in the country, to do this from July last year. That report was publicised last Monday, and it evidences the pathway. So the work, or the mahi, really now starts with us all to implement that, and we can take a leading position, I believe, in this with the strength that is our food and fibre sector, off the backbone of the primary. Yeah, we can do some pretty impressive stuff in this space. So the foundation of collaboration we have across those sectors is a huge part of that. And also of note, the My Next Move youth initiative around exposing, educating, and exciting our youth that we've been undertaking off the back of the original Canterbury Mayoral Forum, Canterbury Regional Economic Development Strategy for Canterbury. For about 7 years now, that funding was approved to extend for a further 2-year period in the budget. So that's a testament to not only the work we do, but now the 20 to 30 other areas, or 25 other areas around the country where that initiative is in place as well. So from a visitor perspective, the winter months are a bit quieter. Our team work on getting alongside our tourism and hospitality sector around capability building, those sorts of things, and planning for the busy spring and summer months ahead. SCOF is coming up, obviously, South Canterbury's Outstanding Food Festival. And you would have noticed the announcement last week that the great team at Cycling South Canterbury, the work they did with, when no one else wanted them, with some of those youth nationals last year, that's put them front and centre with Cycling New Zealand, and we've attracted, or they have attracted, the Elite National Road Cycling Champs, which is a massive event February next year. So we are engaging with them. We'll have a round of the Major Events Fund coming up, and obviously encourage them to apply for that, given the national prominence that that will provide the area. So that's about it in a nutshell. Happy to take any questions. The economic performance, or those monitoring indicators, are reported on. We've slipped behind the national average around our GDP contribution. However, as has been commented on by some of the economists, including Cameron Baggery and the guys from Infometrics, we performed pretty well right through these last 2 or 3 years, and there's a bit of a catch-up going on with some of the other areas. So we still perform very well in that space. And yeah, that's about it from me. We had a conversation with council at a workshop around our SOI for next year. We've taken on board the work we need to do around our aspirational 2050. And we have our annual survey out at the moment, which will help inform some of that work around growth plans of our existing business and industry, housing diversity, etc. And we're looking at some of the other areas around some of that empirical data as well. The likes of Great South did an awesome piece of work in the last 6 months in that space. Comes at a cost, but it's not a case of can we afford to, it's can we afford not to. So we're progressing that as well. So that's me. Hopefully you've heard all that, and happy to field any questions, or Tony may wish to add something as well.
Brilliant, thanks Nigel. Tony, have you got anything you'd like to add?
Hold it there. Yeah, nothing much to add to that, Your Worship. Just those figures were pretty impressive, though, in terms of their export contribution to the New Zealand economy compared to our population. Is pretty outstanding statistics. Just on the housing one, yeah, I just had somebody move up from Southland, taking up a role, and in the end he couldn't find anywhere to rent, so he had to buy, which is probably not all bad, but I just heard, you know, how hard it is to rent in this area, and I think for every house that comes up for rent at the moment, they're having like 180 applications for renters, so it is becoming quite critical, and we need to put as much resource and energy into that as we can, as collectively.
Thanks, Tony. I'll go to Councillor Parker in a minute. So, I mean, you raise a great point. So, and we've talked about this a few times. And so, I'd noticed the survey's just gone out. Is that something that you've included within that survey, or do you think, you know, there's still an opportunity to do a specific survey on this point? Because it would just be great to have data, because there again, and I 100% believe you, but we've used the word anecdotal, and I just hate that word, because if we can get some really hard facts, that can support all those developers out there that want to do some of this activity, and it will support our planning process. So I just think there's a really cool opportunity in there to support that with data. And, you know, and I assume it sits with, you know, VT, and is that a piece of work that you can pick up in the next 12 months, or is that something that you'd like us to do?
No, that sits firmly with us, and as mentioned earlier in my commentary, we are looking at some of the work that Great South has done in that space. We're engaging directly with our large businesses and also our real estate firms as well, in relation to some of those rentals and the swing and the shift around the selling market into a very much a buyer's market. So all those pieces of the jigsaw will come together, and we are collating that, and it definitely does sit with us, Your Worship. So we're on to it.
Brilliant. I love it. Thank you very much. Go now to Councillor Parker, and then Councillor Piddington.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Nigel. My question's about housing as well. On page 25, we talk about housing, and there's a general consensus that and desire to make things happen. We just need to establish resources that assist their understanding. My question is, what is your vision of this resource, and where's it coming from, and what does it look like to help their understanding?
I think that, yeah, the key here is we're working with council at the moment. The front end piece of this is around the private sector partnership around the City Hub project, the inner near city living, medium density close to our CBD, and within that scope, it's all about gathering that information. Yes, the empirical data, but also looking at some of the rules and regulations. I had a good meeting with your planning team yesterday, and council around looking at how we interpret some of those rules. There will be the odd one that may need to be a full rule or regulation change, but we appreciate that has to go through a district plan process. So the resources are really, I think that the key is around making sure we do it right, but we're not talking consultants. We are talking utilising the resources that we have both within VT, within council, and potentially within our wider community, around just fully understanding the extent of the issue that we need to address around giving people who are here and who are being attracted to our district and wider region the options in relation to their housing or housing options, basically. So more than just the house and land package, everything as well.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Piddington.
Either Tony or Nigel, I guess I'm surprised you're not more concerned about a gross domestic product falling behind, and the explanation doesn't really make too much sense to me. You're sort of saying the rest of the country's caught up, so they sit at 4% and we're only 2.4%, acknowledging we are doing very well on exports, but can someone give me a fuller explanation of that? Because the chief forecaster doesn't seem to make too much sense specifically to our region.
I think 4% was for Canterbury, New Zealand was 2.9. But so we're marginally not that far behind that, but it's probably more of the fact that through that whole COVID period, we actually had good growth, whereas a lot of other regions within New Zealand were going backwards. So that's the commentary that was there. But also I think in terms of this region, the GDP growth is very much linked to the milk fat payout. So sometimes we can have quite a vibrant business community within South Canterbury, and our GDP can fall simply because the milk fat price has dropped. That's bigger influence on our total gross domestic product statistic.
Thanks, Tony. You made more sense than the Infometrics chief forecaster. I mean, I would have thought that would have been a simple explanation to put in his report, but thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Piddington. Yeah, look, and there has been a lot of commentary, hasn't there, from economists such as Cameron Baggery and others, I believe, in regard to we have done, pretty well, and it is a bit of a catch-up. So it's that, if you looked at that 3-year period, it would be interesting to see what that looks like. And obviously looking forward into the future. I've got a question just in regard, it's on page 29, and the top 10 to visit. And this is a new, it's just gone up onto the website, and there's video to come to accompany it as well. But how do you come up with the top 10? I'm not disagreeing that they are the top 10, but I'm interested around the process.
Look, there's definitely more than 10, Your Worship, reasons to visit the area. So we basically scroll them through, to be quite honest. There are a wide variety, and we put up 10, and then we scroll them through the various seasons as well. So there's as you and I both know, there's a wide variety. There's at least 50 plus, I would say, Your Worship.
Yeah, so it's not really ranking as such, is it? The number one attraction is such and such. It's just that there's some great things to see and do.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, fantastic. Any further questions? Councillor Booth.
I'm just wondering, Nigel, whether there was any further update on Scott Base and when that's kicking off.
Yep. So I spoke with Antarctic NZ. Have appointed a project manager, a Timaru project manager, not a Timaru-based project manager, but a Timaru project manager, and I caught up with him late last week. Now looks like it'll be early August. It was hopeful that it was going to happen in July, but early August looks like the date that we're going to kick it off. So we're just waiting on confirmation from Lees and Antarctic NZ, and we have spoken with Arawhenua to ensure that we mark that occasion appropriately, and we'll be in touch with council in relation to that.
Thank you, Councillor Pye.
Thanks. Nigel, I just had a question. The work you're doing around promoting the region and the social media stuff, and that looks fantastic. But how do you actually measure success? Because a Facebook click doesn't necessarily lead to people taking action. And so you're measuring increase in population, and I assume you are, because you've got a target around that. And if you are, how do you do that? Because if you're relying on the census, it's a long time between drinks, and they're probably not an even pour.
Yeah. The easiest answer to this, Councillor Pye, is there's no exact science to this. The vibrancy and the prosperity of our region is basically across those high-level monitors around consumer and visitor spend, our median household incomes, median household prices, and dare I say it, the old chestnut of GDP contribution. So, and yeah, there is no exact science to any of this, but it's a case of monitoring those over a period of time, ensuring that we're going ahead and not going backwards, as is the case with the likes of our consumer spend and visitor spend, especially through and post those periods of COVID. So.
Thank you. Yeah, key important point though, and I know we're signing off next week, the SOIs, but I have been looking at across some other ones from other districts, and it's just interesting around how different SOIs look to measure some of those KPIs, etc. And so I think there's some conversation and learnings. Not to say that we've got it right or wrong. It's just interesting that there's quite a difference between different districts, and it is what it is. But I think it's worth a conversation around how we measure performance, because obviously we're putting money into it and we need to be accountable. Any further questions for Tony or Nigel? No, thank you, and thanks all the work. Thanks for the extra bit of work with the publicity. I think that was great to get Timaru on the front page and in Channel 1 and 3 as well, which was fantastic, and you've represented us really well. It's hard to go second, actually, Nigel. There was a bit of pressure on me the following day. Both Nigel's...
They were able to fit your ears on telly, though, Your Worship. They struggled to get my ears on telly.
Oh. That's right. I think we've got similar genetics, actually. But anyway, that's slightly off topic, but I thank you, I appreciate all the work. So we'll go back to the recommendation that Venture Timaru's Limited quarterly report for period 1st of January through to the 31st of March is received and noted. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shannon. Seconder, Councillor Burt. I'll put the motion now. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thanks, Tony, and thank you, Nigel. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Worship, councillors. Thank you.
Cool. So we move now to 9.3, which is presentation of TDHL report for the period 1st of July 22 to 31st of March 2023 for the 9-month period. And welcome Chair Mark Rogers and it's General Manager, is it? Yeah, General Manager, yeah. Fraser Munro, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, councils. I'll take the report as read and touch on the key points within it. Significant 2022 strategic refresh enabled TDHL to deliver an updated and more focused draft statement of intent to council at the end of February 2023. Included in this is a focus on diversifying and growing the company to deliver an increasing dividend to council over the long term. At an operational level, the first 3 months of the calendar year have been focused on putting in place the resources and requirements to support the updated strategy. Work with our associate investments, shareholding partners and on property projects has also continued. Regarding the financials, which are further down the paper, I'll touch on the profit and loss. The year-to-date net profit is 1.8 million as per budget of 1.8 million. Year-to-date expenses are favourable to budget, and total finance costs are below budget due to lower overall debt and interest rates slightly below our forecasted budget time. Regarding the balance sheet and statement of cash flow show a strong cash position being maintained. The investing activities include the acquisition of the Martin Street sites, capital improvements to current buildings and the disposal of Lot 5 at the showgrounds. And on a technical point, you will have noted on the balance sheet the accounts receivable show a credit, and that there is from rents in advance. Movements in equity and statements of cash flow. The 500,000 dividend to TDC was paid in November 22 is shown. This, along with interest payments on the intercompany loan, brings the total cash provided to TDC as at 31st of March to $1,350,295, and a further $500,000 dividend to TDC is forecast to be paid in June 2023, so by the end of this month. I'll hand over to Fraser for operational commentary.
I suppose the main theme is the ongoing engagement with our associates, fellow associate shareholders, ensuring that we're a good shareholder, ensuring we're aligned, and making sure we've got a thorough understanding of our associates' businesses and the challenges that they face. So that's been played out through regular engagement with the boards, regular engagement at an executive level, and ensuring we have our appointed directors presenting at our meetings. But happy to take questions.
Brilliant, thank you. Go to Councillor Biddington first.
Couple of questions just on the report. Disposal of Lot 5 at the showgrounds. What's Lot 5?
As part of the development agreement, there was a staged release of land. Lot 5 is just one of those, part of that staged release. So
I understood that only be released if certain criteria were met, so the developer has met all those criteria, because there's still concerns about how he's managed to shrink some of the what was big box to smaller sizes. Can you update us around?
Well, there's been no change in terms of the requirements around number of retail outlets and the footprint in terms of our contract. The only change was that which went through the resource consent. Is it the resource consent to TDC?
For Lone Star?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, well, because he applied to TDC for consent to put all of that finer grained personal services, retail and Lone Star in that building, and TDC granted it, and it wasn't part of our development agreement with them, so it wasn't.
So what's left, Fraser? We've got rid of lot 5, which I'm not sure really what it is. Do we own anything left there?
Yes, yeah, there's still 2 more lots to be transferred later on this year, and then there's the right of first refusal lot, which TDHL holds.
So there's 8 and 9 are the 2 that are to be transferred if he hits the required contract conditions, and then we own lot 7. So that's first right of refusal.
Might be a tough question, but the cock-up that is the intersection down there, when does it trigger Waka Katahi to get on the case and do the final intersection rather than the temporary one?
I think that's a TDC consent matter, it's not a TDHL matter.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll follow that up elsewhere. Thank you. I guess my last question, always the elephant in the room. The buildings at the south of Stafford Street, about 3 questions. Have you had any more interest? What are your intentions? And the third one is, I understand at some stage you were offered a sale price to recover all the money that you've spent but declined it. And I'm just interested in why you would do that. Because there'd be a chance to escape out of something that obviously no one else is keen to do anything with.
So what was the first question was?
Have we had any other interest?
Any other interest? Yeah.
No, we haven't been actively pursuing opportunities since the new year, which leads into the second question, what are we doing now? And that's that active management. So we're treating them in a manner we would any other building assets, around assessing their suitability, maintaining them, and making sure they're fit for purpose. You got anything to add to that one?
No, that's in line with what we've updated previously with how we're managing them.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess that other offer question, I suppose, if I go back to mid-2020, 2021, we did quite a bit of work with council on the anticipated or desired outcomes for that wider area, because we recognised TDHL's holdings in conjunction with TDC's holdings creates quite an opportunity to shift the dial for CBD redevelopment. And so we did a few workshops and we developed a precinct plan, which basically identified the key features and outcomes that council wanted to see from any development that TDHL undertook. And that's the precinct plan, and it had a whole lot of qualitative outcomes around heritage, activities, connectiveness. And so that's the plan that we took to market, and we assessed the proposals against that we received. So we had some formal written proposals, and we had a couple of informal proposals as well. And at the end of the day, the informal proposals and formal proposals that offered closer to cost, we didn't meet or didn't provide any information to enable us to assess it against those outcomes plan. And those outcomes were really what was the primary driver that was given to us by council at the time.
the formal process, so we had applications come in that we ran through our criteria of assessment, which aligned to the engagement we'd had with TDC, and there was the financial criteria there as well. And we narrowed that down to 2, then got to a preferred, which we progressed, and then that subsequently hasn't worked out. One of those, the other, so there were 2, we took one of them, the other ones we put aside. Separately to that, there were the anecdotal ones, but they never came to the board because they weren't formal offers. They were discussed, you discussed with other parties, but the value was close to purchase price, but it didn't have the other criteria that we required, and we didn't actually have the criteria provided to assess against what we were looking for either. Does that answer that question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thanks,
we're
thanks Mark.
comfortable
I guess people just see them still sitting there, and we've had one solid proposal fall over. I just kind of think I get what you're saying, it'd be nice to have a hotel, it'd be nice to have heritage, but if it, a bit like you did at the showgrounds, could you not put a timing in that they do something? I mean, I'm getting to the stage, obviously if we're dictating to people what they have to put there, it's too difficult, because how long have you owned the sites now?
3 and a bit, nearly 4 years.
Yeah, I guess what we're reassessing now is when we went through the process, there's a lot. So we've got a Bluestone building there that's under heritage status. There's some other buildings there that are deteriorating, have different levels at the moment of quality. So when someone comes in to develop, there's demo and development costs. We're assessing those buildings at the moment and what's best for down there. Demo may be the option, and we're working through those options at the moment. And then that'll produce larger footprints, easier sites, more conducive to that end of town. That's what we're focused on at the moment.
Thanks.
Councillor Pye, and then I think Councillor Booth, did you? Yep, Councillor Pye.
I have just a general question, and it's a little bit long-winded, but hopefully you get the gist of what I'm asking. So when you're just in general developing land with economic benefit to the district front of mind, what kind of things do you take into account, and how do you weigh up the long-term benefits to the district? You know, for example, if they were going to have jobs, a huge number of jobs long-term, versus an alternative which might be short-term jobs for a build, but not a lot of jobs going into the future. And how do you weigh up the risk of hanging out for that long-term business and missing out on the short-term one? Sorry, it's quite a long question.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because up until now, it's been relatively straightforward for us with the port portfolio, because we can overlay, does it add value to the port? And that's been the primary driver. And I suppose, going forward, we're going to have to think more deeply about just that scenario. And invariably, there might be a bit of a mix, because those, working with VT and various developers over the years, those big, high employment multiplier, high population multiplier opportunities, only come along every, couple of 3-5 years, and they don't always, they don't stick. So there's going to be a bit of a mix, and it's about having the capacity to be able to accommodate a bit of a mix.
And further to that should be defined in the SIPO as we develop that as well, to have those other criteria. So our first priority is a return on investment, and then we take the other factors into account as well to prioritise.
Thank you. I just want to tidy up a question which was aimed at TDC with the Chief Executive in regard to the intersection, when that would be triggered. We'll just tidy that up and then I'll go to Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So just so the meeting's clear, in terms of that intersection, the council had, when it was being designed, did promote and encourage Waka Kotahi quite strongly that it should be fully formed as though for showgrounds development. But in the end, because it's a state highway, it's a Waka Kotahi decision, and they made it. And what will drive it is when the development reaches a certain floor area. So until that's reached, it stays as it is. But that's not of our. I think it's important for people to understand it's not of our choosing, and it wasn't of our advocacy. It was done by Kotahi within its own framework of how it sees those projects. So, and Your Worship, I can address with Mr Munro, I can address the question of Councillor Pye when she raised about the letter of expectation. So there was a reasonable list which we have started to work up into some collateral and with some, I suppose, some scholarship or research underneath it, so that we don't just repeat back the list that was given, but we, myself and Mr Munro have started that, and we'll be shortly bringing that to the subcommittee, if I call it that, or the council is delegated with that function.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Pillington.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, that's what my long-winded question was trying to get to that. Now Bunnings is there, that obviously isn't a square metre enough to fix that intersection. How much more do we need, and who's keeping an eye on that? So we know that when another big box goes in, that will trigger it, because people are telling me it's a nightmare out there. And I know it's whakakatahi, but they find it hard to believe we have no influence in such a major intersection in our town.
Well, through you, Your Worship, and I could invite Mr Dixon forward to comment a bit about what, I don't know the exact square metre rate, but what I can do is say that a number of us use that intersection, not just in motor vehicles, but walking or biking or whatever, and get to experience its limitations on a fairly regular basis. Yes, we do seek to influence Kotahi, and I think it would be fair to say we have good engagement and a good relationship with Kotahi. But I think it's also, it might be helpful if they were to come and we could perhaps invite them to explain the framework and how they determine it, because it is done within a policy setting of their own. So, and Andrew Dixon may be more conversant with that, but it's we have sought to influence them to get the full design of the intersection built.
And Councillor Billingfield, I don't have the date, but James Cagle was due to come in July, and I still think that's on regard to our ability to question them directly. Yeah, Mr. Yeah, late July.
Yeah, so thank you. Look, basically, it's linked to stage 2. So yeah, and it's an extra 3,000 square metres, I think, is the figure of stage 2. That is the trigger point to when they have to have the intersection completely built to the final design. So it was a case of, in the RMA, it's about mitigation of effects, and the developer submitted models showing that, you know, up to that point in floor area, in which is X number of customers, that the intersection will cope. So that is how it worked.
Just for clarity, so they start, now Bunnings is completed, is stage 2 what they're doing next, or is that?
Well, stage 1, I believe, is completed, yeah, and then stage 2, but exactly the timing of that stage 2, I don't know, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Booth, did you have a question? Yep. Thank you.
Since Stu brought up the showgrounds, just a couple of things. Now, just you mentioned that the overall development was 34,000 square metres, and that was broken into, say, 3 different lots, if I'm correct. But what's the situation now that he's actually consolidated and used up all his personal services in the one development? Is that so? If he passes those lots onto a third party, is your sale and purchase actually still active in regards to only being able to have shops that are 600 square metres plus, because the whole development was actually intended that there would only be a certain amount of personal services, and that's based around a percentage. Now they've used all for the whole development in one go. So what's the situation there?
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about earlier with the Lone-Star. You did right; they have used that entire allocation in that first stage. So the nature of the TDHL agreement is that it relies heavily on the district plan provisions. So we didn't want to repeat or try and overlay a lot of those provisions in terms of the finer grain activities and actually what was going on site, because the district plan goes into that quite a lot of detail. So at the end of the day, the mechanisms that controls the amount of personal services retail on the site is the district plan. And so they have to go through a consenting process.
So, okay, so it is possible then for the someone to request further personal services for that site, even because they will they'll purchase it separately, and that will take away from the conditions which the council approved the sale.
No, because the planning regime applies to the whole zone, not individual titles. So the fact that he's broken it up doesn't change the zoning.
No, that's fine. next question, just around Alpine Energy, if I may. You've had Melissa Clark-Reynolds present a detailed performance outlook update to the board in April, and it's saying here that the AEL chair will provide a further update to the DHL board in May 2023. I was just wondering how they're going and whether they've righted the ship and they've got a cunning plan that they're going to start making some money again.
They've got a plan. They're engaging with us in regards to letter of expectation with the shareholders, their statement of intent. There's a number of things they still need to put in place regarding staff at that top level. They're working through that. Financial performance, they're still working on their the final audited reports at the moment, but the financial performance last year was acceptable, but there's still a way to go. So we got an update, and it's as per previous updates.
We had may add to that, we had a wider shareholders update last week as well. But I suppose organisational change and takes, cultural change in an organisation takes time. And what we have done is we've done a lot of work with the board around those board skills, the way that board works together, a lot of work with the other shareholders, and a lot of work at a management level to have confidence that we have done enough work and exerted sufficient influence to know that they're on the right track. They've got what they need, they know what they need to do. But overlaid across, or over top of that as well, is the sector challenges that they're facing around the decarbonisation of all the industries converting from coal to electricity or wood-fired burners, around distributed generation and the challenges that brings, and the demands from electric vehicles. So they've got a lot going on their front plate, but all around the world, all around the district, really, in the sector, there's a lot going on. So we're confident that we've got a good understanding of the challenges that they face, and that they are acutely aware of the challenges before them and what they need to do. So that's been a priority for us, a significant priority for us.
Brilliant. Anything further, team? No. We'll go now to recommendations on page 39, and the council receives and notes the TDHL report for the period to March 31st. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Jackson, thank you. Councillor Booth, second. I'll put the motion now. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Fraser. Appreciate that. No urgent business. Move now to mine and nature. Just before we kick in, one item you just discussed earlier was how we better pick up some of the action points from our agendas, and so the plan is to run a separate paper with action items at each meeting, and we're likely to pick that up within the committee agendas as well, just so everything is there, and there's some transparency and some follow-up. So we'll go now to, I think, Councillor Piddington. I've got City Town quick wins discussion first, so I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, thanks, Nigel. I'm just concerned that the City Town group sits a wee bit far away from the council in terms of decision making. The list I got provided with shows we're going to spend possibly up to 3.36 million on quick wins, and I'm concerned of how some of the rankings came out. I understand the information I've got is we're going to spend 225,000 on a Christmas tree that's ranked 10th in priority, but I know we've purchased it. I'm hoping it's not on a whole Christmas tree. Yet slippery tiles come before that. The other concern I had was $250,000 on city centre decorative lighting. I'd like to see what that looked like as a council. It's a lot of ratepayers' money. We're $5 million overspent for the year already. And I don't know how well this is going to go down with the group tasked of how that improves the city, when some of the things that I would have thought a priority, like the slippery tiles, seem to be sitting way down the list.
Mr Dixon, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So, yeah, the projects, the minor projects, or quick wins as you like to call them, were assessed by the project's steering group, City Town Steering Group, which had stakeholders as well as elected representatives on that group. And they were evaluated in a very robust manner, looking at the alignment with the City Town objectives, the strategic framework, and the value for money. So it was costed through there. I will point out that the City Town budget is actually well underspent at the moment. And we are looking at spending about $1 million on these minor projects, which will carry through into the next financial year as well. What you've got in front of you is estimates, and generally they have been on the high side. So take the Christmas tree, for instance, that the actual cost of that is $130,000. We've had to purchase a little bit shorter one than what was originally planned, but we've also got some competitive prices. We had just district plan regulations to deal with, so yeah. But so it's $130,000. The slippery tiles, we've just received a quote and are working through with the contractor at the moment. Again, that one has come in well below budget, and we'll be getting onto that. We've got some trial area to start with very shortly, and then we'll be doing the rest of the CBD, mainly Stafford Street.
Sorry, sorry, I just want to pick up on a point, and you said about accountability, because I'm conscious that it doesn't come through to full council, but there is 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 elected members on that group. But the feedback on these trials from those elected members and the wider, stakeholder group that are on that, business owners and others, has been really positive. And although I think I take your point, that group does have delegated authority, and I think probably the key thing with this one, because I actually think it works quite well, it's a good collaboration between council and business owners and other stakeholders. So I think the key probably thing for us as elected members is to attend if we're not, because there's some really valuable discussion, and we just need to make sure. And I think Selena, that we picked up that all elected members are now getting invites so they can come. Just make sure that they do have the opportunity, because I think overall, take your point about accountability and how that would normally work, but I think overall the process is good, and we're starting to get some movement. It's been frustrating, but we are almost there, and happy for any of those members to make comment. We'll go to the Chief Executive, but Councillor Jackson, if you wanted to make a comment, I'll pass to you shortly.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wondered, in terms of something like the Christmas tree, if Mr Dixon would like to explain a bit more with both the comparative cost with the previous Christmas tree and what we get for this one. I mean, it's probably a little bit more than what someone puts in their lounge, I think. It's important to understand.
Yeah, so this is a fairly upmarket Christmas tree. It is designed to last about 20 years. And in comparison to the Christmas star that used to go on top of the Wellingtonia tree, it was the purchase of that. It was $45,000, and it's a substantial cost to put it up and take it down every year, which involved a crane and everything else. So, these things do cost. I will point out that I'm sure 45 years ago there were plenty of people in the community complaining about how much the angels were going to cost. But they've certainly proved their worth, and they have lasted the distance. So, amazingly, they're very well done. So they're still going after all these years. So, if you buy the quality, you get the life out of it. The other thing I just point out that all the purchases that we are doing still comply with our council's procurement policy and within people's delegation authorities. So we're not deviating from that process at all.
Where are we putting this $125,000 Christmas tree? And are we getting one for Geraldine and Temuka as well?
They don't have a budget for it. We are looking at siting it up on the piazza, which will then tie it in nicely with the carnival. At the end of the day, it's going to be quite a feature to get people into town. We've got the new Sea Play playground going on down at Caroline Bay as well. And, the idea is to create connectivity, try and draw people out of Caroline Bay into the CBD and vice versa. So that's the location at the moment we're looking at.
Who's wearing the Santa suit, Mr. Dixon? Can you answer that?
Not me.
Councillor Booth. Sorry, I was going to go Councillor Jackson, sorry, apologies, and then I'll go Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm no Christmas Grinch, so I'm looking forward to seeing a nice big Christmas tree down there. And I think that when you think about what Timaru district means to people at Christmas time, we have a lot of people coming from out of the district, and I think that putting it down on the piazza, hoping it's going to be windproof down there, but putting it down on the piazza as a gateway down to the bay with all the activity that's going on down there, I think it's going to be fantastic. Just like to thank Selena and the team as well. We've got an excellent program there that you've put together. We have had a few hiccups, I know, along the way, but I certainly think that moving forward we've got a really good, clear program, and I'd like to congratulate you guys on that. So doing a great job. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Booth.
Probably just following on from Councillor Jackson. It's been a bit of a bumpy road, but it's good to see that we're actually getting a little bit of focus and actually getting something done. So, certainly looking forward to actually just actually doing something, and people will see this progress, and that'll hopefully stimulate things to move along further. So, and does the Christmas tree come with decorations, I wonder?
Alrighty, now Councillor Oliver, we don't want to be the Christmas Grinch for Geraldine, do we? So I'll pass to you.
Just a real quick question for Andrew. Are you going to fix the tiles in Geraldine as well at the same time? Will you fix the tiles in Geraldine at the same time?
And Tamika.
And our country cousin next door to me here?
We haven't programmed that at the moment, but if the trial proves to be very successful in Timaru, then we'll look at extending it out to those Geraldine and Tamika. Yeah.
That will be very appreciated.
Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. So that I think is, so that's covered that one for now. Yep, brilliant. Sorry, Jackie has just informed me Waka Kotahi are coming to the 25th of July infrastructure meeting, just for your information. And now, sorry, next one was workshop on consultants and timing.
Sorry, Nigel, can we just make sure Waka Kotahi are aware of all our issues before they arrive here?
Yeah.
So they can give us some sort of explanation?
Well, look, yeah, 100%. And I have had conversations with James, so he's well aware of where we sit on this. And also topical, obviously, will be, Perry or St Andrews, the improvements happening there as well. So, yeah. So your question was on when is the workshop for consultants? So we're hoping to have it prior, obviously, to the annual plan. So I'll pass to the Chief Executive. Thank you.
Yeah. Look, thank you, Your Worship, and Councillor Piddington and others. So look, we have started the work on that. What is the cost of consultants and professionals and so on? What we're trying to do is work out what is, or be able to elucidate what is consultants and professionals that we've needed, because it brings expertise, say, around a bridge design or a building design, as opposed to those where we've brought them in because we don't have the capability or the resource in-house with our team. And so we want to make sure we define between that. Now, you did quite rightly, you asked, I think it was just before Easter, that question, it came up before or after, and we had fully anticipated that the finance team played quite a part in that, in providing that information, and we had fully anticipated that the annual report would be finished by the end of that month, and we would then have it. Unfortunately, we've got a finance team at the moment that's concluding the annual report, largely through the no delays of their own, and I think that will be evident in the opinion, the annual plan and commencing the long-term plan. Ordinarily, each of those pieces of work would be completed largely of their own before we started the others. That's in addition to making sure we do all our usual finance BAU, of which there's quite a bit, plus produce the management reports. It's not looking to seek for an excuse, it's looking to provide context. We are working on it. We could produce, I think, something pretty for next week, Your Worship, but it would be a first cut rather than a finished product, because we have done some work, but it is in an environment where we're asking people who have already been quite stretched in terms of their capacity delivering other work, which has held it up, and they are the people with the sliced data or who can go and slice it for us. So we haven't delivered it. I freely acknowledge that. It was anticipated and expected. There is the explanation, and that's what we're aiming to do. But it is bigger than what was budgeted for, and we've sought to provide that into the management reports that we have provided.
And probably just the key one for me, and except timing's not perfect, but I think what we'll get out of it will still be the same whether it's now or in July. The issue we've also got is we've got a couple of elected members not being here, so I would like everyone to be here for that. Even if we have a conversation next week, I think we need to do something a lot fuller and in detail when everyone's available to be a part of that. Alrighty, so okay with that for now. Next item was just a Meadows Road update.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. So look, yes, I think in fairness, what's going on Meadows Road, so if you were to drive by, you'd see that there's either fencing up and work has been done. So there is a contract now to clear those sites. There is a bit of work because in some of them there's a bit of asbestos, so that requires an asbestos removal plan. That is done. What we're now moving to do is to draft up sale and purchase documents where we will go and look to recover that through a competitively tendered price for those sections, and we're getting professional support to draft the documents, but we will look at essentially running the sale process through council using professional support. But the next step is for us to put those properties onto the market and see what interest there is in them. We're not proposing we will put them out largely as they are currently titled and allow for others to determine what they want to do. So, but I thought it would be helpful if we were to note that, and so that people are aware what is the next stage on those properties.
Brilliant, thank you. Any questions on that? No, all good. Okay, brilliant. I think that's minor nature done. We're going to move now to exclusion of the public. We've got minutes to confirm from the 9th of May, so I'm going to move us. Councillor Parker, thank you. I'll put the motion to the floor. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Just wait a few moments and then we'll move, and then we've got the workshop, first workshop on the LTP to follow. I'm just slightly behind.
He rangi ne, adroha atu, adroha mai, tatui tatu katoa, huie takie. Welcome, councillors, for your LTP 101 workshop. This is the beginning of a year-long journey. It's actually a third of the way into an 18-month journey, but you're just joining us now to see it through to completion. The long-term plan is a statutory document that every term of council must do. It is the most public-facing document that puts you front and center out into the public. It sets the tone for your term in council and for the following term for what they begin, and you are actually setting up the framework for the next 10 years for this community's future and beyond, depending on the type of projects or work programs that are approved as part of it. Our job as officers is basically to make you look good. We can't do that if you're invisible. So this is your document, this is your process, this is you fronting it, and we are here to support you and guide you and provide you with everything you need to make this a very successful long-term plan. Now, Timaru District Council has a rich history of having long-term plans for the past 15 years be in the top 10 around the country. Every council does this. Timaru's have been outstanding. They have won national awards. We intend to maintain that momentum. Luckily, we have got some expert knowledge that has been brought in to help support this, that three of us who are in here project managing the long-term plan and providing the support needed for this council have all been involved in long-term planning over a number of years. Some of them going back to when it used to be the LTCCP, back in the early days of the Local Government Act. And some of us have actually led long-term plans that have also won national awards. So you can rest assured you have the expertise and the support and guidance from people who know best on how to help you through this process. So I'd like to begin by just going through, I've used this before, what we hope to actually achieve today. We are looking at defining the local government requirements for the LTP. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them because I have given you comprehensive handouts to complement my 6-slide presentation, okay, which I'm going to go through expeditiously. That contains a lot more information in those handouts to flesh out the bones that you will see before you today. And I've also printed off sections of the Local Government Act, particularly Schedule 10, that gives you all the legislative requirements of what must be included in a long-term plan, and also the timing of some of the things, particularly with some of the policies, because they can be adopted before the long-term plan. We're going to introduce the LTP framework in which it actually operates. We'll discuss community outcomes and consider your strategic priorities. I'm going to present the LTP timeline that you've actually had in the report that was just at the recent commercial and strategy meeting. And we'll talk briefly about community consultation, a format and a timeline for that at a very high level. And we'll do a summary. The other thing we will also talk about is your reference group that you have resolved that we are going to establish. Okay. So the Local Government Act, you will actually find Schedule 10 that outlines in your handouts everything that must be included in the long-term plan. It defines what policies, what documentation, what strategies, what needs to go with the long-term plan, what section of the Local Government Act they must be consulted on, because we have two different types of consultation, One requires a full special consultative procedure, which is with the hearings, and we often do those ones in conjunction with the long-term plan. A lot of others don't require a full special consultative procedure, and we can often do those prior to the long-term plan. So there is a staged approach to this. You can feel free to look up the Local Government Act, because Schedule 10 refers to different sections. It just helps you to understand this isn't as one of those gray area kind of documents open to interpretation. We have very strict criteria we must stick to and we adhere to, and it's the same for councils all around the country. So hence the competition between councils is how we do it and how dynamic it is, okay? We've got various things that are going to impact the long-term plan. Now, we all know about the three waters. There is the 332-page report from the Select Committee over the Water Entities Bill that came out last week, and it has implications for our infrastructure strategy and the long-term plan. Now, I received it yesterday afternoon. I haven't had a chance to go through and analyze all 332 pages. I probably got to page 2 and thought, I'll do this later. Okay, but there are implications for us. We've got the future for local government, and we're very fortunate because Trudy, being the project sponsor of the long-term plan and helping to lead our team, is also involved with the future for local government review. She represents Timaru on that. It's a working group, isn't it, Trudy?
No, it's what I did at ICC, but it's all right. So
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
across it here.
Okay, yeah. I knew she was heavily involved in it. So we have some insider knowledge as to what's happening there, which is really good. We've got the general election coming up, and I'm not going to be one to predict the outcome, but I do know, being able to read the tea leaves, what a lot of people think is going to happen. That could impact on what's included or what's not included in our long-term plan. So we'll wait and see the outcome of that. We have dynamics that we have no control over, such as our population statistics. We have an aging population, we have inflation, we have the impacts of the changing environment due to climate change and how we manage those. But we also have areas of strengths, like our economic growth and development. That is a strong point for Timaru Council. We're ahead of a lot of other areas, and that is where our growth is in this community. It's not population, it's economic development. Okay. So the high-level timetable that we're looking at, this was included in the report that you actually had, and you can see we have started some of this work earlier in January and February. So there is work underway, and we are in the process of finalizing some of the pieces into a presentable form that we will bring to you. So all of the work programs that you see up there come through to you, and one of the things I want to determine from today is, through the reference group, what are some of the parameters of how you want that reference group to actually work, and what is your preferred method for things being brought to you. We prefer workshops so we can talk through things. Keeping in mind, workshops are not decision-making mechanisms. You can't make any resolutions, but you can give us direction on how you want us to engage with you. Okay, so, but you cannot make decisions that impact levels of service or have a public facing effect, okay? So one of the things we actually wanted to talk to you about was, when we look at our strategic priorities and our community outcomes, The community outcomes are required in legislation that the whole long-term plan has to focus on the well-being outcomes that were reintroduced into the Local Government Act. And in the last long-term plan, a very comprehensive review of those, which required almost a year's worth of work with the community to help define the new outcomes, was undertaken, and 5 key community well-being outcomes were determined, and underneath those were focus areas for those community outcomes that would help to deliver on the overarching goal. What we actually want you to do is to determine, out of those 23 focus areas, what are your priorities that you want this long-term plan to actually be about. Mayor Nigel and I have discussed this a few times, and I have a very clear indication that there's not a willingness to revisit all of the community outcomes from scratch again. The work has been done, and they are very robust. We still feel they're fit for purpose, but this is your chance to take what has already been built and tweak it to suit for this term of council what in there you want this council to focus on. So to that end, I actually have in your handout, I have something called Poll Everywhere, and you will see I also have our strategic directions, which in your long-term plans is on page 20 and 21. And that lists the outcomes, and it lists the goals and the focus areas underneath all of those outcomes. Now, there's no way we can have 23 priorities. So what I'm looking for is under each one of the well-being outcomes for you to be able to prioritize these. Now, I sent you an email asking you all to bring your smartphones. So what I would like you to do, we have the instructions on the front of this. You are going to log on to something called Poll Everywhere. And what you need to do is download the app. You can either go to the Google Store or you can go to the Apple Store on your cell phone. And you download Poll Everywhere. And when you're asked to join the presentation, what you're going to do is put in the username Vincy Balan 860, exactly as it's written. No space or caps. And I'm sorry for the rest of the room. This is only for elected members because it's up to them to actually determine these priorities. If the app is not downloading on your phone or it's not working, I have actually put the written hard copy there that you can just make notes on if you want to put a number from 1 to 5.
And the ones that are here, you'll send this out.
Yeah. I will send all of this out to the absent members as well, so they get an opportunity to engage. Don't enter your name, but you're going to join as a guest because you're going to be anonymous. And what's going to happen as soon as I can log into my computer is I am going to activate each one of these focus areas, and you're going to be able to see it on your phone and be able to, in your own opinion, prioritize what you personally feel should be the top one. So, okay. So, yes, you'll get that at the end. Okay, what we will do, don't put anything under name, okay? Just enter in as a guest. Okay, so the first one that you're going to see is something called Strategic Priorities for Connected Citizens. Now, if you take a look at this handout from the LTP, how are we doing? You're on? You're on? Awesome. How are we doing, Councillor Oliver? All there.
Because of course there's a name for the last thing at the front, so you get
He's not. Oh, women marketing. How are you doing, Perfect. Okay. So what you're going to do now is you are actually going to be able to touch on those different focus areas and prioritize them. So what you're doing is kind of like just dragging them to the top, what you think should be number one. And the explanation for each one of those focus areas is in this little wee handout there. So what you can actually see right there is if you're open to ideas, sharing stories, enabling the community, fostering iwi relationships, or advocacy and leadership. Which out of those 5 should be number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5? And you do that and hit enter, and I should be able to actually see the results come up.
You gotta hold your finger down and then it'll appear on the left-hand side and up and down arrow.
Yeah, just if you tap it, it should actually give an indication that you can move it up and down. Yep.
Yeah, look, that's a good point. So we're conscious that we don't have to revisit the whole of this, but if there is things that you just think, actually, because there's new elected members that weren't involved, 3 years ago. So if you're actually looking at this and thinking, I don't, like any of this, do speak up, because it's important that this is a document that we're all on the same page on. So, yeah.
Absolutely, and I think that will be something that when that actually happens, we will be able to work with the reference group as to how we reframe that and what needs tweaking. It's absolutely, this is your document. Okay. And has everybody finished that one? Yep, submit. Okay. Oh, that means you can actually delete what you said. If you want to change, you can delete. I'm now going to activate the one about enhanced lifestyles if you're ready to move on. Okay. Okay, that should appear on your phone right now. Welcome to the 21st century calendar, counselors. We like to use IT technology to its full advantage here, and it's very quick and anonymous decision-making. That's not, well, it's not decision-making from the legal sense. This is just for you prioritizing what you want to focus on for the LTP. When I have everybody's answers, including the counselors who couldn't make it today, we will present these via the reference group in a report to you for confirmation.
I'm now logged out. It's just waiting for a presentation for tonight.
Okay, let me try activating a new one. I've just activated Sustainable Environment. Is it back in for you, Your Worship? Okay. Absolutely. I'll tell you what, Councillor Oliver, we'll just keep moving on and then I'll come and help you individually. Is that okay? Yeah.
Just you're ranking them and what you think you and your community would think are the top priorities.
Yeah. Your Worship, I'll work with you too. Okay. I will be counting up the number of responses at the end. We don't want to make this null and void. Okay. And now, diverse economy. Our economic drivers, knowing that we have good economic growth in this district.
Sorry, so I hadn't quite finished.
Oh, sorry. I did. I did. I'll go back
These are
and
big decisions, you know, I'm just trying to make sure.
I'll help all those afterwards because I can go back and set it up that you can do it while I'm, yeah, absolutely. The great thing I see on my screen is the bars going up and down. And can I move on to the last one, folks? Okay. And this is about resilient infrastructure. And that's the conclusion of that. And once you finish with that, I'll finalize those results, send it out to all of you after I have the absent councillors fill in their bits.
And as the Mayor said, if there's anything on that sheet, 2021, that you feel vehemently opposed to in terms of our strategic direction and wellbeing outcomes, please let us know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What's wrong with this thing?
The HDMI cable keeps
Popping out?
Yeah,
Okay.
because the screens get moved too much and then it has an attack of this.
Yes.
Just look the other way.
Yeah, we will.
I'll go and see if I can do some
Jiggery pokery.
IT support.
Okay, I want to move on to talk about activity management plans. Now, for the first time in a few LTPs, they are going to be represented to you. So activity management plans are the building blocks of all the activities council delivers, the levels of service, the performance measures, and the budget allocated. It will raise for you all the flags as to what the issues are that each activity is facing, the challenges for any service delivery, the mechanisms by which they will use to overcome those challenges, and they are useful for you to help prioritize your decision-making as to what you want to approve in your budgets for what will go forward and what will be focused on. We're having just a few IT issues with cable, so I'm sorry if you suffer from migraines, that's not going to help. We can look to the side, but you have all of these slides in handouts and on your laptops. Those are the groups of activities for activity management plans. For your infrastructure activities, they also have asset management plans. They are used as the precursor to the activity management plan. Asset management plans are very comprehensive documents, very large documents with a lot of detail, and for those activities that have them, there will be a link to those asset management plans to support the activity management plans. We will discuss with the reference group how we will engage you in the activity management plan presentations. Personally, from my experience and perspective, having 40 people come in and just give you a PowerPoint over a few days is probably not going to be the best way for you to understand how the council works. Having been a former educator, I understand about attention span, having breaks, and useful information. So we will find a dynamic way to present you with the information so you get out of it something of value, worthwhile, that you can actually use, okay? That just gives you an outline of what you can expect to see in your activity management plans. We'll come closer to that. When we talk about council engagement, this is what we require of you. This is about your commitments and what you will be expected to do at various times over the next year. So for the prep workshops, and there will be a few workshops because this is a very complex project with a lot of moving parts, as you've seen from Trudy's report on the long-term plan. There'll be those various topics in that report that you had from the last committee meeting. It outlined all the topics per workshop. We have all the LTP policies. As I said, the Section 82 policies, that's Section 82 under the Local Government Act. That means you don't have to do a full consultative procedure. So they're quicker policies to adopt. They're pretty stock standard. A lot of them relate to your rating policies. So we'll be adopting those prior to the long-term plan. We have draft budgets, workshops, revision, and that means revising budgets or revising activity plans, anything like that. We have a consultation document that we must deliver. You are a key integral part of how we structure that consultation document, what its format's going to be like, and how you front that out in the community. Now, we're in a unique position, this LTP, in that we have former elected members who are actually employed to help you with community engagement. So we're going to be tapping into that expertise, and I'm referring, of course, to Claire Barlow on my right, who's going to support us and help drive a lot of that community engagement. We have Audit New Zealand. There's a long ongoing process. They have already done an interim visit to begin with some of the financial expectations for the financial strategy and some of the high-level forecasting assumptions and other financial assumptions for this LTP.
Audit New Zealand also come through and look at our activity management plans because they're making sure that we're not overcommitting. Oh.
that Audit New Zealand are coming, they will also look at our activity management plans because they're looking to make sure we don't overcommit in terms of projects for delivery to the community. So it's part of that process. And I'll just tap into that an activity management plan remains in draft until the LTP is adopted.
Yeah.
Because it's only a draft activity management plan until you have adopted it.
And one thing I also want to highlight is activity management plans are living documents. So over the course of the 3 years, if there are adjustments made, they will be reflected in those activity management plans. So when they're represented to you for the next LTP, you will see the differences. You have to adopt your draft LTP before the consultation document goes out for the consultation. Consultations normally for the full SCP is about 6 weeks. We hold that in March and April, and then you have your submission hearings and your deliberations, very similar to the annual plan. And then, of course, you have your final LTP adoption. So there, in between all of that, will be those public-facing activities where you're fronting the meetings or activities. We go to AMP shows, we go to school fates, we go to any place where the public is. I've come from a string of councils where we hold community meetings in the community hall at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night and 4 people attend. So our philosophy is we go to where the people are rather than try and force them to come to a cold hall in the middle of winter. So we will probably look to the reference group to give us some parameters as to what the councillors will be willing to engage with. OJ, I have seen some of the dynamic stuff that you've helped to front for Stephen for some of the council-themed stuff. We will be capitalizing on some of those talents, but you're going to be bringing the rest of the group with you. Yeah. When we go out to the public, any public meetings, you will have every piece of information and all of the expert knowledge there to support you because, as I said at the very start, our job is to make you look good. And so we will make sure you have every piece of information you need and you are so well prepared so you're not caught on the back foot. If somebody comes in with any questions about something and you don't have the answers, that's what we're there for, to take the details so we get back to them, okay? And we do that, okay? That is the end of my 6-slide presentation, folks. So it now comes down to basically trying to find out from the reference group. We've agreed the 4 councillors who will be on that reference group. You made the resolution. I want to know, when would you like to meet? The sooner the better for us, because we're already mid-play and we need to kind of get up to speed with the council and bring you on the journey and get you in the game. That's okay, we're actually counteracting that with our team on our side.
It's balanced.
Just one individual, just probably not so easy to
Okay.
just so everyone's so straight out when you get
Of June or July?
Oh, right. Do you have a preference, reference group to mornings or afternoons or?
Lunchtimes, I know a lot of you are working, so we
What's your
can.
preference? Any time on a Tuesday?
Yep, we can arrange that. Mornings, Tuesday mornings, we can arrange that. They will not be long, lengthy meetings. I want to,
Hold on.
because of your schedule, appreciate that.
So I'm probably the
most difficult. Tuesdays don't always work for me.
No.
I mean, I work 2 Tuesdays in 8 weeks, every 8 weeks, so I'm not too bad either side, but I'll work two Tuesdays in a row.
We'll liaise with all 4 of you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we're flexible on venue, so if we
We'll
need
come to your house.
we can vary the place.
Yeah.
If that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go to bed for you, just
Councillors, I promise you, this is an obstacle we can easily adapt to. So we'll work it out. But as long as I have an indication Tuesday mornings, we'll pick which Tuesday mornings once I liaise with all of you. Okay? Awesome. Thank you for that. We will draft a terms of reference based on what other working parties or reference groups have actually have that presented to the reference group, who will then make the recommendation to the committee to adopt those. Okay? And in that reference group, we'll have very clear delineations as to who will be the public spokesperson if there's any media queries and stuff like that. I personally would probably say Major Tom, sorry, Mayor Nigel, His Worship, because theoretically, he leads your team for this project. Okay? So he is our public persona front and center, and then you're the whole team going with him on the journey. Okay, so we'll move on to that. And the last thing I have for you is, do you have any questions for us at this point in time? Yes. Everything will be put up on the hub. Absolutely, everything will be put on the hub. Now, I was set the challenge, can you do a presentation in 6 slides? I met that challenge, but they didn't tell me my handouts didn't have to be. So,
sneaking that in.
yeah, so the handouts I will absolutely put on the hub, but I do have a belief, because when we go to professional conferences, we don't get all of the information up front, but we make sure that we give it to you so you have it. If there's any reading you need to do beforehand, I will absolutely give that to you. But we are trying to encourage the participation, so when people feel that they have the presentation, sometimes they go, oh, we don't need to go, we have all the information, but you miss out on the important stuff. And this is the biggest thing you'll work on this term, I promise you.
Yes, Nikki, on the reading, goes without saying, obviously, the sooner we can have it better.
Absolutely.
But if it's, for example, it's leading into the same week as a council, what have you, then you don't want to be competing with.
Oh, I absolutely agree. This was a urgent workshop pulled together to actually, this is an easy one. It is an easy one. When we get to the comprehensive stuff, especially when we get to the financial strategy and infrastructure strategy, we will carefully time that so that you're not overburdened, because I know it's a long day on Tuesdays. Absolutely agree. And I will make sure that you do get the information in a timely manner, so you won't get it on, like, say, Friday afternoon, if you need to have it done by Tuesday. We'll be fair. So, any other questions that you have? Yes, sir.
I was reading, why wasn't the LTV not adopted before the first year as per the Local Government Act? So we didn't make the deadline last time, is that correct?
That had a lot.
Yeah, we can, So because in there, that's correct. And I'll refer to what Mr. Dixon said, was that on the day we went to adopt it, at 20, I think it was about 10 to 2, before a meeting at 3 o'clock, the auditor rang me and said, I can't issue the opinion. As someone said to Andrew Dixon, as he was leaving, I heard the auditor pulled your opinion at the last minute. He said, no, they gave us an hour. What they did was they represented to us that, well, we thought we were all good to go, and then there was an issue about how to treat what was called the 90% or the assumption around our program delivery, and whether we had represented that correctly in the long-term plan. And so they wanted to test that further, and so we adopted, I think it was about the 12th or the 14th, because they the auditors came and said, oh, we're uncomfortable about the 90% assumption around our program delivery. And so we had thought we were good to go, and then it came back at the last moment, and that's correct. But it was, there were a handful of other councils that didn't adopt. So that's correct that we didn't adopt at that, on that day.
Is there any penalties?
No, not in that case. I mean, it does get problematic, as one or two councils found out, if you're starting to run months and months overdue. In this case, it was really just a technical matter. It didn't have any impact on the delivery or anything like that. And in the event, we're going pretty close to the 90%, actually. We feel like telling the auditors we have a lot, we're getting there. So this year might be a bit different, but for the first 2 years, I think, Andrew, we more or less made it, didn't we? The 90%? Yeah.
It's pretty good until this
Yeah, last financial year we've been challenged a bit with delivery, but yeah, well spotted. That was correct, but it was right, and it was right at the 11th hour. Literally, we thought we were all good to go, but we weren't. Yeah, not the audit opinion really does matter. There's no doubt about it. It tells you that you can rely on all of the information contained in here. It does get a proper grilling. It really is a piece of paper worth having. So
your opinions are worth having if you get them in a timely fashion.
We could refer to that on
not a
the
year
annual
after.
report. Yeah, yeah. An annual report, which in reality, another financial year will have passed before we get it, and that is far from ideal.
Just quite a bit of detail around the finances. Will we have a chief financial officer to help us with that?
Yes, you will.
Well, yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
Oh, brilliant. I think that's it, is it? Thank you.
It is. I'll work individually with councillors who just want to go back and do or I can send you the links if you would prefer that, and you can do it in your own time. I'll send you the links.